Hey everybody, welcome to What Drives Us, episode 365. It's April the 29th, 2020. I had to look that up. I've lost track of all days and episodes and everything. Lockdown day number 70 something, I think. I don't know.
Started
Who
1, 2,
knows?
3, 4, 5. Got 7.
Yeah. I'm your host this week, and we are going to venture into our journey into advanced technology, mobility, sustainable energy. Fortunately, I'm not added on. Look at this fine cast of characters. We're social distancing, so I am on the deck of the USS Enterprise D, as you can see, with superior air filtration. So, like Vice President Pence, I don't have to wear a mask this week.
Tony's out in the neutral zone, and he's safe there.
Yep.
You might get space herpes, but
You never get rid of that shit.
No, you'd have to start snogging the green girl.
This green girl and the tribbles. I'll tell you what. You start hitting the tribbles, man. It's
Look,
down here.
I don't like to get into anybody's kink. Don't keep shaming.
So I'm going to start by kicking things over to my co-host this week. He is Mr. Russell Frost.
Greetings, as my friend Patrick would say, from the bottom left corner of America. As I would say, beautiful San Diego, where we enjoyed the marine layer for most of the day, but got a little bit of sun at the end of the day. Thank you. The garden looks beautiful. Everyone is safe and as yet uninfected, and I hope the same is at your house. Oh, one other thing. Tomorrow, look for a special What Drives Us episode all about the Tesla earnings call, featuring none other than Patrick Connor and possibly Casey Green and Georgia and Tony. Who knows, maybe. But Patrick, because, Patrick's sort of our stock guy. Is that fair? Is that an accurate description of Patrick?
I'm an investor. I don't know that
He's
I'm
an
a
investor.
stock guy.
He's our most profitable investor so far.
Yeah. So, I mean, for all we know, Mark might know more about stock than Patrick.
No.
No, that's that Canadian humility. But anyway, I'm sorry, my intro has gone way too long. Thank you, Tony.
All right. Well, I'm going to skip Patrick, who may be our stock panelist. I'm going to go to our token panelist, who is our female on the show. She is Georgia McKenzie.
Well, really?
Our token chick. We have a token chick again.
Linda used to refer to herself by that moniker, and so it's kind of a running gag in the show.
The old school
It
viewers
was.
and
It's
That's
good
true.
to know I'm checking off all your diversity checklist needs in one shot. So there you go. Welcome all, and we're happy to have you here so we can talk a lot about sustainability. Like, will Tony sustain his life energy after next week? Big question.
Probably not. All right, I'll throw it back to Patrick. He's the man who mans our Facebook page. He is Mr. Patrick Connor.
Hello. Yeah, as mentioned, I am a Tesla shareholder, and that's been a fun ride. And it's not for the faint of heart. So, as Georgia said, it's a big gamble. But I think, kind of like poker, there's certainly some gambling, but if you know what you're doing, you can kind of put things a little more in your favor. That doesn't mean it's 100% guaranteed, but don't take stock advice from anybody on the internet, especially me.
And speaking of stock advice, I'm going to take a tangent right here from last week's show. Don't take stock advice from the man who drinks gasoline. I'm going to give a shout out to our very own President Donald J. Trump, who is an avid fan of our show. Hearing that I suggested that it won't kill you to drink gasoline, he decided to take it a step up and told people to inject disinfectant. So thank you, President Trump, for deflecting everything that I said.
You were one up.
Light in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I know, he went up me, little bastard. Yep. All right, the man who does not have to deal with our president, he is our man in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, Mr. Mark Coughlin.
Hello, everyone. And it's unfortunate you people still have to deal with that guy day in and day out.
People.
It's terrible. Absolutely terrible.
So have you opened your borders yet? Can I come up?
No, definitely closed. Definitely closed.
Damn it. Well, and with that, I'm going to head over to our alt champion, our Mr. Ludacris. He is Mr. Casey Green.
Howdy. So I've been trying out some new software, and shot the video with my well, not all of it, but I shot enough of the video with my new 8K 360 camera, and it is crushing my computer. So the video was supposed to be out before this show, and instead it'll be sometime later tonight or tomorrow night.
All right. Hey, that'll be great.
Yeah.
So it's in 8K, so I think it's about a third of 24K gold. Is that like just the Bruno Mars album?
So it's 1080p is 1K. We got eight of
That
them.
was a joke, Casey. I
understand.
actually understand.
And thankfully, YouTube knows what you have, and it will step it down so that it doesn't crush your computer when you go to watch it, or phone, or whatever.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk some stuff, huh? And it occurred to me this week that Mark bought his Volt something like 3 years ago, right? Your second gen?
Yeah.
How's that-
Now,
how's
did
that
that
working
occur
out?
to you, or did you just read it in the email?
That's what occurred to him after he read it in the
suggested-
email.
After you read the email, it occurred to you. That,
Yeah.
I see how that works. Yeah, so it's my Voltaversary. Got the Volt the last day of April 3 years ago. And yes, it's still in one piece. It looks good. I've got actually a couple photos that I can share with the group that I took just last night, actually. So we'll just share that video or that photo. So there we go. Paint still shines. Couple shots around. Oh, check out. There's the Waterloo Region EVA sticker on the back.
Nice.
Is that the
Let's
side of the
see.
road where it broke down?
I have a hat that matches that.
That's right. That's right.
So we ran out of
And,
battery and refused to burn any gas.
Well, speaking of burning or not burning gas, that of course is the story of the Volt. It's for those who don't know, it's got about a 19 kilowatt battery, and it burns virtually no fuel until the battery is dead. Then a generator kicks on and produces power to create electricity, and goes even further. So basically, if you are driving within the range of the car, which is somewhere between, say, 55 miles and 75 miles, I have found over the 3 years of ownership, you will burn zero gas. The only time that you will be prompted to burn gas is if you go 42 days without the generator kicking on at all. Then it has to turn on and run for about 5 minutes to lube up the parts so that generator is available to you in the future. And then the only other time that it'll prompt you is if, for example, you have fuel in a tank that's over a year old. And at that point, it'll go into fuel maintenance mode, which will burn that fuel off so that you can either add some to top it up, or just add another group or another amount later in time. So really, that has of course allowed me to get these type of figures on the Volt. So I have got a lifetime mileage of 0.3 liters per 100 kilometers.
Wow.
Wow.
That, of course, is way over 800 miles per gallon if you were to work it out in the US system. And that's over 3 years of use, and approximately, I believe I'm getting close to 44,000 kilometers, which would be what, about, I guess that would be about
35,000 miles?
28,000 miles.
Wow. Okay.
So that it blows my mind. I've never obviously had a car that's burned that less of fuel. Like it's really non-existent. I'm basically going through a quarter tank of fuel per year, and the
Wow.
Volt has a 9-gallon tank. So so two gallons a year is what I go through. So it's an incredible vehicle. It's really served me well. Here we are. We're at 43,689 at this point, and man, I just cannot say enough about it. The car has it's been fantastic. I've had a couple of issues. I had a shift to park issue that was handled under warranty, and that indicated that when I got home one day, I tried to shift to park, and it wouldn't let me turn the car off. It said, "Hey, you got to put it in park to turn it off." And then I said out loud, "The car is in park," and it didn't recognize it. So I had to shift and drive, shift and park, shift and drive, shift and park, and then it worked. And I took it in the next day to replace the entire shifter, and that was it. The other issue I have run into since ownership has been that the car had an issue where the infotainment screen, the main 10-inch screen on the car, started to get dim one day and then went blank the next day. Called the Chevy dealer, had it brought in under warranty. They replaced the entire screen, and it's been perfect since that point for a year and a half. So those are the two issues that I've had with the car, the only issues I've had with the car, and I'm quite happy with how it's been operating.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Mark. You just reminded me. You're talking about work under warranty, and you reminded me when I bought my 2004 Prius. The only warranty work I ever had done with it was that the cassette player. Yes, it was a 2004. And there
A
was
cassette player.
There was a yes in 2004. It had a cassette player. The cassette player stopped working, and I had a tape in it at the time. And you guys know me. You know I'm an avid audiobook consumer during my commutes, and I had posted at the time on Prius Chat that my cassette player had stopped working, and I was listening to an audiobook. And I laughed because I remembered somebody shot right back and said that I had officially bored my car to death.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
The last thing I'm going to
No, I was going to say to Toyota's credit, actually, they actually shipped me the cassette back so that I could return it to the library. So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mark.
Last thing I'm going to touch upon is Volt Stats. This is a public website that anyone can visit, voltstats.net. And this is a list of a number of Chevy Volt owners across North America, actually the world, that they map point where those cars are, and they show them in different colors of green to indicate how good of mileage that these cars get. So just so you're aware, about 170,000 Volts have been sold since 2010 in North America. And this map shows you the concentration. So you can see in Tony's area of Chicago, there's quite a concentration, as well as, of course, the Detroit area and across into the Toronto and Southern Ontario area. You have the ability to zoom in, and you can click on the individual data points, and it will show you how many miles per gallon that particular Volt's getting. So that's mine, that bright green one. I can click on it, and it will actually bring up my stats. So it tracks my total EV miles, which you'll see is 26,000 and change. Wow. My total miles overall, 27,000 and change. So basically 850 some miles on gasoline, the rest on EV over the lifetime of the car. I'm getting about 97% EV percentage for my Volt, and then some other figures about MPG, MPGE, and MPG CS. And then, of course, it gives you your ranking amongst all the people that are on Volt Stats. So you can see how close to the top or the bottom you are in those different stats.
That's
so
pretty cool.
This website is available for anyone to log into and click on. You can also see the other cars So if the other Chevy cars, if you wanted to click on other models, you could look at Spark EVs, Bolts, ELRs, and even the CT6. So you can click on and see the different, but obviously the Volts have the most with 170,000 currently sold when 2019 when they were retired.
They've
Yeah, it's
taken
really
mine
a
out of the
shame that they
list.
retired it.
I
Yeah.
agree, Patrick. I agree. I think it's they were kind of let out early. I think they still had some legs to run, and that's another point. If you're in the market for a good used EV, the Volts that are coming off lease, the 2016, 2017s, 2018s, those cars can be gotten for a song. They're a lot cheaper than they were, obviously, when they came out as new. A car with 30,000 miles on it, like through CarMax or one of the other multiple resellers, you can get a used Chevy Volt in those years that would be it's extremely cheap compared to what was it paid for new, basically 50% off. So
Wow.
if you
Wow.
have some interest in that, just check out your local used car lot or do it online and compare shop because there's a lot available out there. And for someone that wants to get involved in the EV movement, this car I believe is the perfect choice because it gives you a backup plan. At any point, you do have a backup generator that can take you further if you want to use it. In my case, I haven't had to, and my stats show that.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's a great way to get an introduction to this lifestyle of plugging in. And yeah, you don't have to, but you're going to want to. And so, because when you're running on electricity, it's a lot cheaper to fuel, you have no emissions, and so that's great. So these vehicles, it's really, GM should have kept it going until they had a broad portfolio of other EVs out there, which they don't right now. And they've got a couple, and that's great. But why kill this when you could have kept it for another 4 or 5 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I just pulled up cars.com in the Chicagoland area. 2017 Volt Premier, 18,500 US.
Yeah, and that's the top of the line, the Premier model. Yeah.
Yeah, and then here's another one for 20, another one for 16, 7 for 19, a Volt LT for 17. Yes, this is yeah.
And I have
good.
to I have to say that I started with a 2012 Volt, which I still have. I sold to my daughter; she uses it. And what I found is that once you start using the Volt in EV, you just want to go further in EV. The further you can go, the better, and it becomes a game. You want to do better. You want to go further, and you pull the stops out to do it, and it just leads you down the EV road further. And I will never go back to a regular gasoline car. I was converted in the first 4 weeks of ownership, and it's just been a progression from that point forward, getting further and further into the EV lifestyle.
Yeah, my biggest annoyance with my Volt was when I was a mile from the house, and it decided it was time to run the generator. Like, we're almost home. There's juice waiting for you.
Yeah. I think every plug-in owner has experienced that, or you're just watching it go 5%, 4%, 3%. You're like, no, and then you hear it.
My favorite though is that like it would turn on the generator and it wouldn't use it. It would just warm it up, and it's like that was pointless.
Yeah, the warm-up cycle just to
Yeah.
get the engine up to optimal temperature. Yeah,
You
exactly.
might need this. No, we're almost home. I won't need it.
See, Casey, you were part of the game and you didn't even know it.
Yeah, I thought that my numbers were good about 2012. I shared there, and you blew me out of the water. Jeez. Yeah, my 13 was red like yours.
Ah,
Yeah, it didn't get anywhere near the mileage of the 12 though, because my wife didn't appreciate all the charging.
Well, thanks for the update, Mark. That's great. You're crushing it, man. I mean, it's it's a great story. That like you said, you do the gateway, and now your daughter has one, and then you've moved on, and you have a Tesla. in addition to your Volts.
it-
It's the progression that we've all talked about. And,
Is that the same daughter but the Spark?
No, that's my second daughter. So
Oh.
I got a Spark EV, a Volt 2012, a Volt 2017, and of course my wife has the Tesla Model 3.
Plug-in family.
Yep.
The nuclear family, you might say.
Oh,
Well, if I may, I want to stay on the plug-in topic and talk about the Chicago City Council has recently voted for equitable access to EVs. Now, this is a topic we had touched upon earlier, and by earlier I mean like middle of last year, on how it's becoming more effective and efficient and cost-effective for new buildings and new parking lots to have charging spots built in compared to the cost of retrofitting existing building and parking structures. Well, here in my city, the city of Broad Shoulders, Chicago, Illinois, they have passed an ordinance that says that all new multi-person residents and parking lots with multiple spots at businesses have to be plug-in ready or plug-in installed. Now, first I'm going to give you the numbers. So a residential building with 5 or more dwelling units must be plug-in ready, and commercial buildings with 30 or more parking spaces have to have the charging infrastructure installed as part of the parking lot or parking structure construction. So as we know, EV ready, this is level 2, EV installed level 3, and EV ready means the parking spots will have electrical panel capacity so that if somebody wants to install charging, they can. EV installed takes it a step further, and you actually have the charging station installed there. Now, I mean, this is a big deal, especially in cities like Chicago, where you have the multi-tenant buildings, and people commute into the city, and they might drive the entire drive into the city on battery, and they might want to charge before they drive the entire drive back. So this is a great first step, and they did have to step it back a bit. So I said that it was multi-tenant with 5 or more dwellings. Originally, they had targeted 24 residents. But then they realized that if they went with 24, then those are actually pretty big structures, the skyscrapers and the big multi-tenant buildings. So they brought it down to actually impact more multi-tenant structures. So hopefully it'll have a bigger impact that way. So this is kind of just a really neat thing. Of course, as we had talked, having EV charging built in will hopefully draw more tenants. It'll make the real estate more valuable because now people who are interested in driving plug-in vehicles know that they don't have to go out and purchase something, or they at least know that the infrastructure is already in place. And hopefully for the real estate developers, putting this stuff in place will make the real estate more valuable for exactly the same reason. Then they should be able to draw in more tenants who are EV minded.
Oh yeah, if you already have an EV and say you get relocated or whatever and you need to move, you're only going to be looking for places where you can plug in. Even if it's just, okay, I'm going to live in an apartment for a year while we house shop or whatever, you're going to be looking for places where you can plug in. And if they don't have plug-in, it's not even going to be on your list of places you consider. So it's absolutely going to help them draw in tenants.
yeah, definitely.
That's how we ended up here. There was a parking spot 3 spaces over from a 120 outlet, which is not ideal, but it's good in a pinch. And my facility that I have for rent out in South Carolina, it's got 100 amp charging and solar, and in fact I pay the electric bill as long as they don't go over the solar output. And they, right now the tenants I have are running gas cars, but if they were to ever go electric, they're not gonna want to go just somewhere else around the corner where they've got their electric bill paid and they've got a place to plug in their electric car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cold climates like here in Mark, I'm sure in Canada as well. If you have multi-tenant buildings, you traditionally have, like underground garages. I've seen that where you have multi-tenant buildings and you have a drive that drops down and you have covered parking.
Yep.
Well, now, it's going to be great because, not only are you parking out of the elements, but you can plug in.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And it was awesome that they lowered those numbers. I was kind of hoping to see that when they said they lowered it to something like 3. Two might be expensive for the individual homeowners, but 3 is just like perfect, like a triplex or any small area would be perfect. But like we always say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good here.
Right.
Yeah, I'm also looking at it from the renter perspective and saying like, does this mean they're going to jack up the rents because, oh look, we've got an EV charging station? It's like, well, hang on there. It's not a huge facility, and I wonder how that's going to impact things. And then the other side of this is that this is new construction. What
Yeah.
about retrofits?
Yeah, hopefully renovations would be required at some point in the future, and yeah, you probably have them sell it as a premium feature of the property. But once everybody's got it, then that'd be like a place without AC is a place without and depending on where you are, obviously. But like say a place where you need the air conditioner in the summer, it'd be like trying to rent a place that doesn't have air conditioner. You're gonna have to charge a significant discount to actually get anybody to look at it.
Yeah, that was, and both of those, Georgia, were my thoughts as well as I was reading this. And, there are a lot of different, bloggers and articles here in the Chicagoland area. And there is talk of introducing a renovation aspect of this. But, it does come down to they didn't want to wait. And so they're doing this in phases. So first they're doing new construction to sort of get the feet wet, to get it going. And then they're having to work out like a percentage of renovation, just how much triggers the need to have to do this sort of, this infrastructure build out.
And it makes sense to start with new construction because that's where it's the cheapest to install it. You've already got the drywall off and you can just run some conduit and it's not that hard and it's not that expensive compared to a retrofit.
If they put it in code, wouldn't that make it so that if you do a to the studs retrofit, now you're kind of in order to get your permit, you have to meet that?
Well, I guess, but we're talking, these multi-tenant buildings. We're talking, these, apartment complexes, condominium complexes. So, yeah.
It will be interesting to see with the economic pressures a lot of businesses are facing this year if developers aren't pressured to add amenities and to do things to attract paying renters as well. Something that wasn't true last year, certainly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but and how it's going to impact the market, because we are in this weird situation where we really don't know what's going to happen fiscally in 3 months or 2 months, honestly. And it might actually prove that it would be cheaper and better for a developer to go to existing properties and make them more attractive with a retrofit of a charging station, as opposed to trying to do a new development, because there's a lot of people who are probably not going to be looking for any place new anytime soon.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And we've seen that the electric sales are setting records month after month, and that didn't stop during the situation that we're in right now. They've continued to set records despite car sales having tanked, and like you said, if it's cheaper to just do them all at once, like A, when it's new, or B, if you do it right when you want to try and make your property more appealing, if you buy in bulk, it's worth it.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm hoping to see how this works out. And again, it's just one step, and hopefully not only is it a step in the right direction, but hopefully it's a step that other cities will be watching, so that they can see how it's implemented, how it's done, and they can build upon it, and it'll be adopted in more places.
Yep.
Yep.
See how it works.
Well, Georgia, why don't you talk to us a little bit about one of our favorite modes of transportation, which is mass transportation.
Mass transportation, right? Since that's kind of my passion. So we're talking a little bit about what's happening at City Lab and their article on what the heck do we do now to preserve public transit ridership and while we're dealing with coronavirus and what happens after. And I really want to focus on the what's going to happen now because we're still in the middle of what do we do? And they have some pretty good recommendations on things like heavy sanitization. Of course, that makes perfect sense. Just you're going to have to up the sanitization between routes but how do we do that, especially for long distance routes? Because if you live in a city and you take a bus route that sometimes they go for a full hour and a half or more just in one direction before they come around and come back, and how do you schedule that? So I'm thinking that at some point that's going to cause a lot of delays in how we schedule things. And outside of places like Chicago or New York City, where you do have some pretty stellar public transit over there, and a lot of people depend on it, and so you have more buses in your fleet. But I'm out here, and Russell, I've been in San Diego. I've used public transportation in San Diego. As you head out from the main San Diego hubs, and you get out way out in the hinterlands where, you got maybe one bus an hour, what happens then? So that's one. And then the one thing that definitely jumped out at me was the use of the handheld temperature scanner before people are allowed to get on public transit.
Oh, wow.
This is America. We don't like to cooperate with anything for our own good. And you're telling us that they need to stand there and be scanned before they get onto the bus? I've ridden public transportation since I was a kid. I have never seen people deal properly, even with putting the money into the box on a daily basis without grumping. Stand here and get your temperature scanned. Ugh. And I mean, these are all good recommendations. And some of them are things that should have been done immediately, like provide transit workers with proper PPE. But
Yeah.
I believe that song is now, it's number one on the charts and it's old at the same time. And I don't know when that's going to happen. Requiring people to cover their faces. Well, where I live in YOLO, we have a mandatory face covering rule that went into effect this Monday. They're not ticketing you, but it is mandatory that if you go outside, you got to put on your face mask. Anything, please, people. And I came back from a walk before the show, and how many people do you think I saw out there without a face mask? Easily half. People are not following any instructions because they feel fine. And until people don't feel fine, they don't say, let me just preserve my life and yours and put on a face mask. So there we go with that. And on top of that, another great suggestion was coating surfaces with copper. Because copper, and smack me with a feather, but I didn't know this, copper is antiviral.
Antiviral, antibacterial. It's very harsh.
It renders viruses inactive. I did not know that. So they propose coating the surfaces, the metal surfaces, with a copper coat.
Yeah, before
I knew
read
this silver was, but I didn't know copper was too.
Yeah, but they're both of the same method, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought
And
I
both
was
of them are
looking
really
at the
cheap too.
antiviral.
No.
That's what
That
I
might
was
be
saying.
one place there's a little difference between the two.
What was that, Tony?
I thought my videos were the only thing that was antiviral.
Oh.
So did they also address how to do the distancing requirements on these
that is the one
Especially-
thing that we never hear talked about. And I have been trying to prepare a little query letter to bus manufacturers and saying, hey, what do you got on the drawing board? Because this is not going to go away. We're going to have to come up with something. I can tell you that local public transportation is mandating that you enter at the back of the bus. So you have to go to the back and not walk up to the front. And much like frontline workers in grocery stores and postal workers, and not just the doctors and nurses, but the staff of hospitals who do the cleaning and things like that, and garbage men, we are seeing transportation workers dying of coronavirus. A very notable one was a guy who filmed his complaint that this woman was coughing all over the place in the bus, would not cover her mouth, and he was worried about corona. And I think, it was 2 weeks later, he was dead of coronavirus?
Yeah,
Exactly.
It was really sad.
It's very sad. So this is an ongoing problem. And I'd like to believe we have ongoing solutions happening. But I also am an adult person who's lived a long time among human beings. And I just, I can see that we're going to have problems instituting most of these recommendations, although they're really good. And I also do wonder, I don't think that people have really considered that we might have to prepare for a future where for the next 5 to 10 years, because people think herd immunity is something that just happens. We just all get sick and we'll have the antibodies. And what they've found out with the antibodies of coronavirus is that's just not how it works. You can be sick with coronavirus multiple times. It doesn't.
Well, okay, I don't know that that's true. The New York Times article that said that has been called into question.
It has been called into question?
Yes, yeah. It could have just been their antibody testing wasn't correct.
False positive.
Yeah, so I've heard that, but I want to throw out a little grain of salt there just to say, we're not epidemiologists.
Yeah, we're not, and we are not. And I'm only going because I did read that article, and I read and I looked at a couple of things where they said the antibodies weren't as high as they had hoped that would come out of people who had recovered. And they can't guarantee that if you get coronavirus, you're going to recover. And recovering from coronavirus does not mean your body returns to the same state it was before coronavirus. You can recover
permanent lung damage.
Permanent lung damage, I believe, to other parts of your body.
Huge.
Even
Amputations,
kidneys, and I think also they said esophageal tissue and things like that, which is why? And we're not even touching on the weird clotting factors that go into the coronavirus that can cause strokes. And that's a whole other thing. And kids I think they've had at least one kid die of their weird disease side effect, which is they got sick with coronavirus and they have Kawasaki syndrome.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's at least killed one kid. So this is an ongoing problem, and we're going to have to do something about it because there is no one path to full sustainability for the human race going onward. Cars are great, and it's great that we have electric cars, and we're going to move towards manufacturing them, but society will always have strata, will always have economic issues, and we are going to need a way to move people from place to place efficiently and cleanly and protect everybody's health, the workers and the people using the transit. And I'll see what else I can turn over, and any new developments, I'll bring them here.
I wonder if they could do like those air curtains when you walk into a building or open a drive-through window and put a HEPA filter on them and just push all the air straight down. Like little cubicles.
Those meat market heavy vinyl things.
Yeah, something like that.
Only stay here. You stay in your corner.
And then the air blows over you.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I've heard that in some areas, used car sales are spiking because people don't want to take public transportation anymore, and they still have to get to work, and it's not easy financially because that's why they didn't have a vehicle in the first place. But or maybe they just like public transportation. I have several friends who could definitely afford nice cars but prefer to take public transportation. And so for anybody that is for a lot of people where it was optional, they are now opting to own a private vehicle instead, which is too bad.
Yeah.
But I understand it. I mean, yeah, you don't want to be around people who are coughing on the bus, then you find a way to not take the bus.
Or worse, where you don't know that they are
They
ill
may not
because
know.
because
Asymptomatic.
they could be ill for 14 days ish before they even know or even suspect that they are a carrier. And
Well, and that's also, I mean, this is something that we've certainly preached on this show repeatedly, which is it's great. Yeah, you get a car, you don't have to mix with the general public, right? And maybe
Right.
you're safer. Of course, while you're driving your car, what's coming out the tailpipe? What's giving
worst.
all the kids in the neighborhood asthma? What's polluting it for everyone else? Now, I'm not saying sacrifice your family so the rest of us can live, but I'm saying none of these things are free.
Right.
There's
It's a
no,
balance.
yeah. So maybe rather than the default being the car thing, maybe we should work harder on the mass transit thing.
Yeah.
Make your city
One of the
bikeable
thought-
and
one of the-
walkable, because then you're not
Yes.
jammed in a tight space with anybody or putting out noxious elements.
Yeah.
One of the
Yeah.
things I found most fascinating in the article here in City Lab was what they had talked about, the short-term cuts to save transit agencies money during the crisis. And, we had talked about this before. I mean, here in Chicago, Metro Rail has reduced the number of trains that they're running. They've reduced the number of stops they're running, where they used to do 3 runs an hour, maybe it's 2, or maybe it's once an hour. And the here in the article, they did a good job of talking about the mistakes that many of the transit authorities made in 2008 when they saw the ridership decline. They made cuts in order to save money, but they made those cuts permanent.
Yes.
They never went back to pre-crash periods. But there was one example that they cited that did go back, and they brought everything back up to the way it was before, and their ridership actually increased. And Patrick, I don't want you to get a big head.
Too late.
God. Good luck with
I
that.
know,
Did we
right?
already discuss them on the show?
But yes, I can't say enough good things about the stupid Portland TriMet. Yes, they did see their ridership increase after the event because they made the cuts, they saved the money, but as soon as the crisis was over, they went back to where they were before. And that was a sign of confidence, and people got back on the trains, and people saw the benefits of mass transit. Where everywhere else around the city or around the country, they made the cuts and they kept the cuts. You can't grow the business back up if you don't give people the opportunity to increase ridership.
Right.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, one of the things when I worked in government that my boss told me that he never, ever, ever closed out his books for the end of the year for our department with a positive number. He got it to as close to 0 as possible because he said, if it looks like you don't need that money, they'll take it from you and your budget will be cut by that amount. It's better to be 0 or a little over so you maintain your funding, because the mindset they have isn't that, oh, well, expenses fluctuate, and if we have a net positive one year, great, we'll just roll it into next year's budget and you'll have a little bit more in case there's an emergency. They don't think like that. They're like, oh, you trimmed expenses. Well, from here on in, you'll never need that money ever again. And they'll cut it by that much. And that's a dumb
true.
idea.
They treat
That's
it like a
bureaucratic
business
thinking.
Yeah.
instead of a service.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an ongoing issue. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it is. Thanks, Georgia. I mean, it's, we talk about mass transit a lot, and as much as we talk about we want more electric vehicles on the road, the nuance is we want fewer vehicles on the road. We just want a higher percentage of those fewer vehicles to be electric vehicles. We actually would prefer fewer cars and more people taking mass transit, whatever
Yep.
form that is.
Or a
Absolutely.
walkable city.
Yeah, several cities I was in Europe, like every 5th block was pedestrian only. I'm like, this is awesome. I can walk around this whole city. And it's so much nicer. You don't have the fumes. You don't have to worry about if I step in the street, I'm going to get nailed. It was great. And I wish more cities in the U.S. would do something like that.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
would be great. Actually,
Well-
it's really nice.
Thanks, Georgia. I want to move on, and I want to talk about something that our South Korean manufacturers and friends are coming to market with. So Kia revealed in January something they called Plan S. And this was their plan for going more electric and committing a significant volume of electric vehicles to the market by the year 2025. They talked about investing $25 billion, and they want to get 11 new Kia EVs by 2025. So within 5 years, they want 11 EV models, and they want to sell 500,000 EVs annually by that year. So this is a greencarreports.com article, and what's interesting is Kia kind of caught us people off guard because they introduced two models that was not on anybody's radar. So they did a really good job of keeping this stuff under wraps. Now, there's not a lot of details about them, but what is interesting is, first of all, they plan on bringing a dedicated PHEV, and so there's not going to be an ICE equivalent. It's only going to be available in plug-in, and they are forecasting this is going to be in the U.S. market by the end of this year. So
Wow.
clearly they've been working on this for a while, but no one knew about it, which is crazy in this socially connected era. Now, I don't know if, see, there's a couple of images with this, and I'm going to share my screen here because I want to show you the this. So this is a picture of the Imagine by Kia, and I believe that this is a prototype, of course. You can tell by the suicide doors. And the stupid steering wheel. So it's a prototype of an all-electric Kia that we think they're bringing to market by the end of next year. And then this, the habanero concept, may be the plug-in. I said habanero, maybe habanero. I don't know. South Korean using Mexican words.
I think it's adorable. I actually really like that name.
I know,
so
I do
much.
too. I think this is a great looking little
Nero.
And then
crossover.
and I know it's going to
Nero.
be sold as it's really hot. The habanero.
Yeah, I like that spicy red accent on it. That's
I
cool.
think it's cool.
Yeah.
The way they spell Nero is exactly like the vehicle they've got on the road today.
Yes, habanero. Yes, it's yeah. So this is the Green Car article I was telling you about. Kia Electric 300-mile range, 300-mile range, 20-minute fast charging by late 2021. And again, caught us completely off guard. And I think I scrolled past it. So it's really weird. They're describing it as it's a little bit car, it's a little bit crossover. 300-mile range, sub 20-minute recharge times, and again, due late next year. So this is sort of just really out of left field, and we don't know a lot about it, but certainly as details come in, hopefully we'll find out about it and we'll talk about it, and I don't know. Stay tuned.
We have the technology. I mean, that's the beauty of the electronics, the EVs, is that they are very democratizing. Yes, the large manufacturers like Hyundai, Kia could do it right now if they wanted to, or if they don't, then the up and coming players like Rivian and anybody really. There's so many that if managed correctly, they could all just come out of the woodworks, and that's beautiful.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, Hyundai right now has extremely efficient cars. So you get into the Kona EV, and the
Kia
Ioniq.
EV.
They're
Yep.
extremely efficient. So they get a lot more bang for the buck for the battery they have, because of their light weighting and their ability to have an efficient motor. Those vehicles go a long way as it is.
Yeah, I'm going to say it again. Every Kia and Hyundai, from the Sonata Hybrid Blue line to the Niro EV, everyone has just blown me away with
Really?
not only how well appointed and how well built I felt that they were, but the Hyundai, the Sonata Hybrid was giving me astronomical hybrid numbers and great fuel efficiency, and the EV was just killing any expectations that I had.
Yeah, and it's not like this company is a small car company. They might not be that well represented in the States, but they own industries in their home country.
When I
Yes.
reviewed the Soul EV and the Ioniq EV, again, good EVs, strong value propositions in both of them. But where they both really were outstanding was in the efficient way they used electricity. You got a lot of miles per kilowatt out of those vehicles. And that's something we tend to overlook. Sometimes we look at 0 to 60 speeds and what size is the battery pack and all of that. And the truth is, if you use the energy wisely, you don't need a huge battery pack. Lucid is certainly working really hard at using their energy so they don't have to put more batteries in the vehicle.
Yep.
Cheers to Hyundai and Kia for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this could be the opportunity for them to move up in market share and in mind share, the way that Nissan was trying to with the Leaf, and then they've kind of stopped innovating, and they've had other internal issues that have slowed down their progress. So that opens the door for someone like Kia to step in.
Pricing is going to be interesting because Kias are known for very affordable, good, solid entry-level cars. I mean, I drive a Toyota, but I would look at a Kia too. I mean, they've got really good reputations. And I remember when they first entered the market and we were like, what's this? Little toy car. And I think that they've hung in there, and they're a pretty competitive brand for a low end car. And I don't mean cheap. I mean good
Affordable.
entry level affordable car, $15K to $25K. It's a good price.
Look at their neighbors. You've got Samsung, you got Sanyo, they've got what it takes to make this happen at an affordable price, and they've probably got government assistance as well to help them do it.
I have to admit, I would drive that habanero just on the name alone. That's it. I would test drive that. I mean, I'm not an SUV person. I mock SUVs because 9 times out of 10 they never leave the city. But I would totally drive that just to see what it's like, and I definitely like the car.
And you know what? I've come around on the CUVs. The little crossovers that I've driven. I mean, I said when I got my first Prius, I'll never have a trunk again. I've just totally been won over by hatchbacks, and so having the CUV, a smaller, form factor with a hatchback and the folding seats and the potentially cavernous cargo area. Oh yeah, hands down.
I like the way the CUV was part car, part SUV, and now this one they're saying it's part car, part CUV. 3/4 car, 1/4 SUV.
Our breeding experiments are getting out of control.
Yes. We got a Labradoodle, this new Kia Labradoodle.
Exactly.
Here's your show title, the Kia Labradoodle.
I'm writing it down. I like that.
Well, and on that, I'm gonna call it. I think we have a good show. It's been about an hour, so why don't we go ahead and GTFOOH? I'll let you work that out. So before I run the cycle, I want to remind everyone that if you want to read the news that we're reading, make sure you check us out online. If you haven't yet liked us, friended us, follow us on Facebook, you're really doing Patrick a disservice because he works really hard
Patrick works hard, y'all.
Make it personal for Patrick too. You know.
Look how tired he is from all that work populating our
Poor
Facebook page.
Patrick.
Yes. And, I sit here on the deck of the Enterprise and I flip magazine articles into Flipboard. And if you do use Flipboard, look for the What Drives Us magazine. And so you can see all the things that we're seeing. So I'm just going to go around and I'm going to ask, I'll start up north. Mark, you have any one last thing?
I would like to remind people, if you're watching the show at this point and haven't already, please give us a thumbs up. It helps us in the eyes of new YouTube views. Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, what on earth are you waiting for? Here's your chance. It's free. What else do you need to know? Subscribe and help us out that way as well. And other than that, we'll see you next week.
All right, thanks, Mark. Georgia?
I'm going to repeat that. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Keep up with what drives us so you know what the heck's going on. And wear your damned masks and wash your hands, people.
Yes.
I don't care if you're exercising. Wear a light mask.
You don't need that much damn oxygen.
Run slower.
Yeah.
Flatten the curve while you flatten your abs.
Oh, I like that.
That's right.
Speaking of which, Patrick, any last chats?
Yeah, so stay tuned for upcoming a little chat with Russell and myself and whoever else likes to join us about something big that happened today. Tesla had their earnings announcement. Their letter came out. The stock market loved it after hours. Lots of great action. And we'll talk about it tomorrow or soon.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, look for that.
Tomorrow evening. All right. Casey?
Yes. Speaking of Tesla, they recently released a new software update, 2020.12.6, and in it includes an update to their AI for the full self-driving system. And you may have seen a bunch of numpties run out there and just get in their car and drive it without reading the instructions. So why don't you watch my video on somebody who's actually read the instructions and actually sat down and tried to use the system as intended for a few minutes. I spent a couple hours with the vehicle and I've chopped it down to a few minutes, and you'll see that on my channel, youtube.com/Casey Green. That's KACEYGREEN, probably tomorrow night. But if I get it done tonight, you'll see it published.
All right. I'm at Urban Dictionary and I can't find any entry for numpty.
It's a British one, I think.
It's
It is
a
British
good
insult.
word.
Just a
Look
joke.
up Numpty Dance.
Yeah, I know the numpty dance. Everybody. knows the
No,
numpty
that's-
dance.
Yeah, numpty is an Englishism.
Russell, bring us home.
Me? Oh, me! Me. The Kia Labradoodle. I'm sorry, that one's still bouncing around in the brain case. So thank you for that, Patrick. Let's see. Plugs. I got plugs this week. Friday, May 1st. Put it on your calendar. You're going to go to Bandcamp and you're going to buy Michael Manring music and you're going to buy music from the Miss Allens. Why? Because on Friday, Bandcamp is donating all of the proceeds to the artists there. So go to Bandcamp, buy some music from your favorite local band and support one of our favorite guys, Michael Manring, and buy his music there as well. And if you do it on Friday, Michael gets all the money. If you do it another time, Michael gets some of the money, which is great. But, when these orgs do these things to give more money to artists, I want to encourage you guys to go out there and do that. So Friday, May 1st, Bandcamp, go buy some music, buy a song or two, buy an album, whatever. It's all good.
Did you say this Friday coming?
This Friday. Friday, US 30 drag strip. No, I'm sorry. That's a different show. That's tomorrow. So look for us tomorrow night on youtube.com/whatdrivesus. Not only will this show be there, well, you're watching it, right? So it was already there. Did I just do time travel?
Man,
God. But tomorrow night, there's going to be a very informative show about the Tesla quarterly earnings call, first quarter of 2020. And of course, lots of exciting stuff. We'll talk about Elon meltdowns. We'll talk about the stock soaring through the ceiling. We'll talk about the exciting future that Tesla has. And there'll be lots of nasty, sarcastic remarks from me.
And drinking by all
Yeah, have your
If
supply
you want to
ready.
play the Russell drinking game, I guarantee a hangover on Friday morning. I gay run fucking tea it. As always, I want to thank Michael Manring for our theme music. Visit him at manthing.com, youtube.com/what drives us, as everybody said. Please subscribe. It costs you nothing and it does help us a great deal. In the next week, please stay home, stay safe, wear a mask, take it easy. Okay? We need all of our viewers. You, even you. We need you. So do stay safe. Keep your family and loved ones safe as well. Back to you, Tony.
Once again, don't forget to go to Bandcamp and buy Michael Manring's. You can't say enough great things about Michael Manring. I mean, literally 10 years he's let us use his music completely royalty free. That's because that's the only price we can afford. So,
And it's really cool music.
and it is really cool music.
And it's
I
great
know.
music. Yeah.
Yeah.
The new solo record is going to be, now I haven't even heard it yet, but it's going to be amazing. So
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to thank each and every one of you all for being on the show with me today. Make sure I don't have to do it alone. Listen, thank you to all of our listeners and viewers for hanging out with us. Geez, I can't believe people stick around for an hour to listen to all of this.
right?
Because you're
So-
awesome.
I know.
We are.
That's all we got for this week. So make sure and tune in or download next week and find out what drives us.
Stay safe. Stay charged.
Yeah.